The Forest Cloak Princess. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there lived a queen so beautiful that the three worlds had never seen such beauty. The queen and the king lived happily, ruling over their kingdom. They had one daughter, but the great misfortune befell them as the queen became very sick. Every remedy and medicine was given to her, but to no avail, and she passed away. The king was heartbroken. The queen's last wish was that the king find someone as beautiful as she was to be queen.
I could never replace you, my love, but I agree.
Before the king could finish speaking, the queen was gone. The king loved her a lot, and he wasn't ready for a second marriage. But one day, his courtiers came to him.
Your Majesty, the subjects need a queen.
So what do you think I should do? I am old, and I do not want to remarry, and finding someone as beautiful as she, it's impossible.
The king did not know what to do, but one day his daughter came to him, and he realized that she looked just like her mother. The same golden hair, the same heavenly beauty. An idea struck the king's heart, and he made a decision. Finally, the promise he had made to his dying wife would be fulfilled. The king summoned his courtiers to the court.
The new queen of our kingdom shall be my daughter. She shall raise the power as the queen, and she shall be married to the son of the prime minister who will become king after I'm gone.
The princess was not happy.
Father, what is this?
It was your mother's wish, my dear.
But how can I marry someone I don't even know?
Enough. I have made my decision.
Okay, grant me 4 wishes.
Yes, of course, my dear.
I want 3 dresses, 1 as golden as the sun, 1 as silver as the moon, and the 3rd as shiny as the stars. Finally, I want a coat made of 1,000 things from the forest without hurting a flower, a bird, or a beast.
Your wish will be done.
So the king called the best weavers of the kingdom and asked them to weave the dresses. Soldiers collected material for the coat.
My dear daughter, all that you have wished for has been created and has been put into a walnut shell. Now it is time for you to be married.
But father, how can I marry someone I barely even know?
You promised, daughter. Now stay true to your word so I can stay true to mine.
Father, what Mother meant when she said that, she meant love makes people look
Enough.
beautiful. How can...
You shall get married tomorrow.
The princess decided to run away from the palace. She left a note for her father, the king. I am sorry, father. Someday you will understand. The princess walked across the country and forests into other kingdoms that she did not know. One day, tired, she found a hollow tree and fell asleep inside it. The king of the country happened to pass by.
Your Highness, there is a stranger inside of a hollow of the tree. She's wearing a cloak that no one has ever seen.
Very well. Bring her to the palace.
So the soldiers woke up the princess. The princess went into the palace where she was given kitchen work. One day, the king had a feast. After all the work, the princess asked the cook, Sir, the work is done. May I please go and see the ball?
Aye, it's all right. But come back within half an hour.
Thank you, sir. I shall.
The princess ran to her room. She got cleaned up and wore a dress as golden as the sun from her walnut, and let her golden hair down and went to the ball. As soon as she entered, everyone was mesmerized by her stunning beauty, and the king danced with her. When half an hour was over, the girl vanished and got back into the kitchen to do work.
Wait. First, prepare soup for the king.
Yes, sir. So the princess prepared the soup for the king. She also put her golden ring in the bowl, poured the soup, and served. The king summoned the cook.
Did you make this soup? It certainly does not taste like your usual soup, because this soup is better than any soup I have ever tasted before.
It's from my kitchen. But I think a girl made it.
When the king finished the soup, he found the golden ring at the bottom of the bowl. So the cook called the princess, and the king showed her the ring.
Is this yours?
How can a poor kitchen girl like me have such a ring, Your Highness?
You remind me of someone I met at the ball today. Your soup was delicious. Thank you.
My pleasure, Your Highness. A few days later, there was another ball in the palace. Once again, the princess asked the cook for permission to watch the ball. This time, she put on her dress as silver as the moon. The king danced with her. But as soon as half an hour was up, she disappeared and became a kitchen girl once again. This time, the princess took her golden necklace and put it at the bottom of the soup bowl and sent it to the king.
This is the best soup I have ever had. What is this? A necklace? Send the kitchen girl in again.
Once the princess got there,
Is this yours, girl?
how can a poor kitchen girl like me have such a necklace? The king couldn't help but wonder about the mysterious kitchen girl and the lady he had met at the ball. So when the time for the next ball arrived, he decided he would find out the truth, because he wasn't bright enough to put two and two together. Sir, all the work is done here. May I please go and see the ball?
All right.
The princess wore her dress as shiny as the stars and went to the ball. The king danced with her, and he slid the ring he had found the first day in the soup onto her finger. The princess did not realize this. The king insisted the princess stay a little longer. She was late, and half an hour went by. The girl disappeared. As she was late, she did not get time to notice the ring on her hand. The same thing happened this time also. She put her golden bangles in the soup and served them to the king. The king sent for the lady cook. When she arrived, he asked her about the bangle, and the princess said, "How can a poor kitchen girl like me have such a bangle?" The king noticed the ring on her hand, and he was in deep thought.
I've been dancing with the kitchen girl.
He asked her why she did all this drama. This time, she told him everything about her past life. The king was amazed and said,
I love you, and I wouldn't care if you truly were a kitchen girl. Besides, I love your cooking. Will you marry me?
"Yes, I will."
I want to eat like this the rest of my life!
You got it! Finally, she married the king, and they held the wedding in the royal kitchen. Who knew that the cook was also an ordained minister?
I now pronounce you king and wifey.
The girl's father also came to the wedding and provided all the dessert. Made it from scratch. And the couple lived happily ever after. The end. Green Night. Long ago, in a palace called Camelot, the great King Arthur was celebrating Christmastide. Sharing the king's celebrations were the knights at the Round Table. The youngest of these knights was Arthur's nephew, Sir Gawain. Everyone at the celebration was in good spirits and looking forward to a mighty feast. The king raised his cup for a toast. But before he could speak, the doors of the hall burst open, and a strange man rode into the hall on his horse. The knights all gasped in astonishment, for he was the strangest man they had ever seen. The visitor was extremely tall. In one hand, he held a green holly branch, and in the other, a huge razor-sharp axe. The knights were dumbfounded.
I have not come to feast, but to test and prove once and for all the courage of the famous fellowship before you. If it is battle you seek, I will gladly accept your invitation. No, sir. I have not come to fight, but to challenge. Blow for blow, my challenge is to strike my head with this mighty axe. And then I will strike the challenger. blow for blow. And your warrior can even have the first strike.
With that, he raised the giant axe above his head. All the knights were silent. No one cared to accept his challenge. The Green Knight looked mockingly.
Is this the court of which such mighty claims are made? Are these the king's knights of valor, so courageous?
Stung by shame, King Arthur cried out,
You will see that we fear not your big words, nor the sharp steel of your axe.
The Green Knight sprang from his horse and put the axe in Arthur's hand. But the knights pulled him away to protect the king. Sir Gawain stood.
Grant me the chance.
Nephew, take care that you put all your strength into the first stroke, so that he may never strike you back.
The Green Knight smiled grimly and turned towards Gawain.
Your courage is amusing to me. I will be pleased to take a blow from you. But first you must swear that you will seek me out in 12 months and a day, so I can give back what I received from you.
Sir Gawain gave his sword, and the giant pushed aside his hair to expose his neck. The young man grasped the axe. Down came the razor-sharp axe on the muscular neck, shearing through skin and bone, so the heavy head fell to the floor. But the giant stood firm, and, without flinching, picked up his head and sprang on his horse. All stood silently.
I have your word. Do not fail to seek me out. In 12 months and a day, you will find me at the Green Chapel.
The year passed swiftly, but Sir Gawain was true to his word. Winter came, and he rode on his horse to search for the Green Chapel. He climbed many a hill and crossed many rivers. He stopped regularly to ask after the Green Knight, but none had heard of such a man. Finally, on Christmas Eve, he found himself in front of a noble castle. The lord of the castle met Sir Gawain with a hearty welcome. He was a very tall and sturdy knight. At the evening table was the lord, his beautiful lady, and many knights. For 3 days, he enjoyed the festivities. Then he went to his host to say his farewells. He explained he must be on his way, for he needed to find a place known as the Green Chapel. His host, however, assured him it was near. Gawain was pleased to hear his journey was nearly at an end, and willingly agreed to stay for a further 3 days. His host planned to go hunting the next day, and made a puzzling offer. Sir Gawain would receive whatever animal was killed on the hunt, and the lord of the castle would receive whatever gifts Sir Gawain received in his castle. Sir Gawain was puzzled and said,
I do not expect any gifts in your castle, so it will be your loss.
And the agreement was made with a friendly toast. The next day, the lord went out early to hunt, while Sir Gawain rested in his room. The door opened, and the lady of the castle entered. He asked her to leave, but she would not. Instead, she gave him 3 kisses on his cheeks, like Gawain's mother used to give him as a child. That evening, the lord of the castle returned and brought home a fox skin. True to his word, Sir Gawain gave the lord 3 kisses on his cheek. The lord he laughingly said that the fox skin was a poor reward for the kisses of the lady of the castle. Gawain's heart was heavy, for the time was drawing near for him to leave the castle and face the Green Knight's challenge. The next day, he dressed, bade goodbye to his host, and set out into the dark, stormy morning. The lord of the castle had been provided to guide his way. Together, they went to rugged cliffs and dark swamp. As the sun rose, the guide stopped short of a road which wound between 2 snow-covered hills. The guide pointed to the road, and Sir Gawain rode onward. Through the hills, the road soon became bordered with sharp banks. Eventually, he came to a dark cave. He went inside. Immediately, standing in front of the young man was the huge figure of the Green Knight, bearing an axe, his head again firmly attached to his shoulders.
Welcome. You have scheduled your travels well. Now prepare to make good on our bargain.
Sir Gawain bravely removed his helmet and bent forward, offering his neck to the giant's axe. As the axe was raised, Sir Gawain could not help but flinch, and the Green Knight stopped.
You flinch. Are you afraid to fulfill your promise? When my head comes off, I cannot put it back like you, but I gave my word, and I will not flinch again.
For a second time, the giant heaved his heavy axe up into the air. This time, Gawain did not flinch or cry out, as the sharp axe whistled through the air and onto his neck, splitting the skin. It was a few moments before stunned Gawain realized that, apart from a few drops of blood, he was unharmed. He turned to see the Green Knight, but it was not him. It was instead the lord of the castle, who took his hand and lifted him to his feet.
My brave knight, my wife and I have no sons or daughters, and sought a man of courage, honesty, and truth to be our heir. I am Sir Berblake. I came to Arthur's court with this challenge in order to seek out a man worthy of taking our place in this kingdom. It is you.
Sir Berblake took Sir Gawain back to the castle, where he was proclaimed to be the new lord of that realm. Sir Gawain ruled with courage, honesty, and truth for the rest of his days. The end. The Princess of Spring. Once upon a time, a moon giant named Moonlo was strolling through the barren lands of the moon when he suddenly caught sight of the beautiful giantess of Earth called Terra. Moonlo at once fell in love with her. He slid down a moonbeam and landed on Earth. He knelt in front of her, holding a tree-like flower, and he proposed to her. Terra was very impressed with him. She smiled. Moonlo had won her over. Moonlo built her a wonderful palace by the great river. It was the most beautiful palace on Earth. Terra was very happy. Soon, the baby of Terra and Moonlo was born. The giant hermit came to bless her and announce the baby's name, Princess Spring. Terra and Moonlo were very happy. As the beautiful Princess Spring grew older, many suitors visited, but she favored none of them. She was so happy living in her lovely palace with her dear mother. One day, Sunshine, the sun giant, came to encourage her. When Princess Spring saw him, she was astounded, as Sunshine was the most handsome man that she had ever seen.
Hey there, you beautiful Princess Spring. My name is Sunshine, and I have come to you to ask for your hand in marriage.
Princess Spring at once became sad.
Oh, mighty handsome Sunshine, I cannot leave my mother because I love her more than anyone else. I am sorry.
Sunshine left. The next day, when the sun rose, Sunshine came back to the palace again.
Oh, beautiful Princess Spring, please come out.
Hearing his voice, Princess Spring at once came out.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you.
And I'm glad to see you too, Princess. And I simply cannot stay away from you. But I also understand your love for your mother. So I've come with another proposal.
And what would that be?
Marry me. Come with me to my kingdom. Stay with me for 9 months. And the remaining 3, you stay with your mother.
Princess Spring smiled because she quite liked Sunshine's proposal. She agreed, and the wedding was held at once. After the wedding, she bid farewell to her parents, and she left with Sunshine. A few days after the wedding, Moonlo said to Terra,
My love, it is time for me to go back to my kingdom to take care of my people.
But what about me?
Darling, I've always asked you to come with me, but you never do. You do not want to leave your palace.
True. I do not wish to leave Earth. I will wait here for you." They hugged each other, and then Moonlow left. She was all alone. She decided to go for a journey into the deep woods, and there, Frost appeared. "Welcome, Terra. You took a while to come out of your territory. Who are you?" "Sister, don't you recognize me? I am Frost." "Oh well, it's been a long time. I can't expect too much of your memory. Besides, I am here to conquer you. Now, Frost." At once, Terra was covered with ice and froze. "The earth is now mine." And soon, the earth was covered with ice. Moonlow was informed about this by his wise minister. He at once asked his minister to arrange for a meeting with Sunshine.
Sir, you should meet Sunshine secretly so that Frost is unaware of your meeting.
Ah, you're right.
The wise minister suggested an idea. Later, Moonlow moved the moon and placed it right in between the sun and the earth. This caused an eclipse. Moonlow met Sunshine and Princess Spring midway and explained everything to them. Sunshine was furious.
I will melt Frost with my heat.
Moonlow nodded and moved out of the way. Sunshine unleashed his fury upon Frost, and soon all the ice started to melt. "What is happening?" The rays of the sun were too powerful. She at once understood that it was Sunshine. "All right, stop."
I am not going to stop until you set Terra free.
"I will, but I have a condition."
Either you set her free, or I will melt you completely. There are no conditions.
"Fine, go ahead. Melting me will cause great floods all over the earth, and it will take you ages to fix." Sunshine was stunned.
She is right. Ask her what her condition is.
Sunshine fumed in anger. "I will leave for now, but every year, when Princess Spring returns to you, I want my reign on Earth for all the 9 months."
That is absurd. 9 months of cold temperature will harm the earth. What would be even left for me to give to it when I return?
"Okay, fine. 7 months then."
Where do you think our newborn son Monsoon is going to be for his adventures? We've decided to send him to his grandmother's palace every year for 3 months so that he can learn about the earth and shower his rain upon it.
Oh, come on now. Another baby?
This baby is the son of Sunshine and Princess Spring.
Okay, fine. 4 months, and that is it.
2 months.
Stop, both of you! While you're bickering, my mother is still frozen like a statue. 3 months. You get 3 months every year. Take it or leave it.
Okay, fine. I will see you all next year. And with that, she disappeared. Princess Spring at once reached Earth, and Earth looked beautiful. The ice melted off of Terra, and she was free once again.
Mother, I have given birth to a son. He is going to be the giant of rains. We have named him Monsoon, and he will come to visit you every year for 3 months.
Oh, how wonderful! I am so happy, my child. And so every year, Princess Spring would come for 3 months to visit Terra, and the earth blossomed. Then Sunshine would come to take Spring back, and with him came summer on Earth. Then Monsoon would come to visit and stay for 3 months with rains. Then when he left, Frost would come, bringing winter with her for the last 3 months of the year. And as for Terra, she embraced all the seasons with love, and together, under her, the earth flourished. The end. King Grizzlybeard. Once upon a time, in the faraway kingdom, a king named Michael had a daughter named Dinah, who was as beautiful as a flower. But she was very selfish and overconfident that no suitor was good enough for her. She mocked many princes as they came to marry her. Once, King Michael made a great feast and invited all eligible suitors. Then they were presented before the king's daughter. But with each man she saw, she had some objection to make. One was too fat, another was too tall, the third was too short, the fourth was too pale. So she had something to say against everyone. But she taunted a good king who stood there and whose beard had grown weird.
He has a beard like a grizzly bear.
From that time, he got the name King Grizzlybeard. But the old king, when he saw that his daughter did nothing but mock the suitors and hated all the suitors who were gathered there, was very angry and swore that she must marry the first beggar that came to his doors. A few days afterward, a beggar came and sang beneath the windows. When the king heard him, he said,
Let him come up.
So the beggar came in his dirty, ragged clothes, and sang before the king and his daughter. And when he had ended, he asked for a small gift. The king said,
Your song has pleased me so well that I will give you my daughter as a gift, as your wife.
The king's daughter trembled. But the king said,
I have taken an oath to give you the very first beggar, daughter, and I will keep it.
The princess was speechless and had no choice but to marry the beggar. Then the king said,
Now, my daughter, it is not proper for you as a beggar woman to stay any longer in my palace. You may just have to go away with your husband.
The beggar led her out by the hand, and she was obligated to walk away on foot with him. When they came to a large forest, she asked, To whom does that beautiful forest belong?
It belongs to King Grizzlybeard. If you had taken him, it would have been your forest.
Ah, what an unlucky girl I am. Afterward, they came to a meadow. To whom does this beautiful meadow belong?
It belongs to King Grizzlybeard. If you had taken him, it would have been your meadow.
Ah, what an unlucky girl I am. Then they came to a large town. To whom does this fine large town belong?
It belongs to King Grizzlybeard. If you had taken him, it would have been your town.
Oh, what an unlucky girl I am. At last, they came to a very little hut. Oh, goodness! To whom does this miserable, nasty hut belong?
That is my house, where we will live together.
She goes into the hut. Where are the servants?
What servants? You are my wife now. Make my supper. I am quite tired.
So, I'm your servant.
Yes.
But Dinah knew nothing about cooking, and the beggar had to cook himself supper. Then they went to bed, but he forced her to get up early in the morning. For a few days, they lived in this way and finished all their supplies.
Wife, we cannot go on any longer earning nothing. I will try to sell clay pots. You must sit in the marketplace and sell the pottery.
If any of the people from my father's kingdom come to the market and see me sitting there selling, how will they mock me? But Beggar was in no mood to listen to her. The next day, she sat down at the corner of the marketplace. But suddenly, there came a drunken horseman, and he rode through the pots so that they were all broken into 1,000 bits. She began to weep now. What to do?
Oh, no!
She ran home and told Beggar of the misfortune.
Don't cry now. I can see that you cannot do any work. So I have been to our king's palace and have asked whether they have a place for a kitchen maid. And they promised to hire you. In that way, you will get your food for nothing.
Dinah was now a maid and did the dirtiest work. In both her pockets she fastened a little jar, in which she took home the leftovers, and each night she brought that food home to her husband. At the wedding of the king's eldest son, the poor princess went to the king's courtroom and placed herself by the door to watch. But servants carried dishes full of delicious food past her. The servants had pity on her and threw a few pieces to her as they passed. These she put in her jars to take home. Then the king's son entered, and when he saw the beautiful woman standing by the door, he took her by the hand and would have danced with her, but she refused and shrank back with fear, for she saw that it was King Grizzlybeard, the suitor she had driven away with her cruel comments. But she could not resist. He took her into the dancing room. As they came to the center of the floor, the string in her pockets, which held the jars, broke. The jars fell, hit the floor, and food was scattered across the floor. She was very ashamed. She jumped to the door and would have run away, but on the stairs, the prince caught her and brought her back. He said to her kindly,
Do not be afraid. I am the beggar and the horseman. It was because of my love for you that I disguised myself. Sometimes, without humbling, humility cannot be reached.
Then she began to cry, then said, I am not worthy to be your wife.
Be comforted. The evil days are past. Now we will celebrate our wedding.
Then the maids came and put most marvelous clothing on her, and her father and his whole court wished happiness in her marriage with King Grizzlybeard. After that, they lived happily ever after. The end. Snow White and Rose Red. You may have heard the story of Snow White, but this story happened several years before Snow White was ever put to sleep by the wicked stepmother. A long time ago, an old woman lived alone in a cottage deep in the woods. She had 2 children. One she called Snow White, the other Rose Red. The 2 children loved each other dearly. They often roamed in the woods gathering berries and playing with the animals who they loved and trusted. One evening, as they sat cozily together, someone knocked at the door. Rose Red opened the door quickly. It must be some traveler seeking shelter. Rose Red rushed to unbar the door, and she saw a bear who poked his head through the door. Rose Red screamed aloud. The bear began to speak.
Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I'm freezing and only wish to warm myself a little.
Poor bear, lie down by the fire. Snow White and Rose Red, don't worry. The bear will do you no harm. He is a good, honest creature. So they obeyed their mother. They fetched a towel and rubbed him until he was dry. Then the beast sat down at the fire. When it was morning, the bear returned into the woods. From this time on, the bear came every evening, at the same hour, and laid down by the fire. They got so used to him that they stopped locking the door, and let the bear come in whenever he got there. When springtime came, and all outside was green, the bear said one morning to Snow White,
Now I must go away and not return the whole summer.
Where are you going to, dear bear?
I must go to the woods and protect my treasure from the wicked dwarves. In the winter, when the earth is frozen hard, they are forced to remain underground. But now, when the sun has warmed the ground, they come steal whatever they can. Anything that falls into their caves is not easily found again.
Then the bear disappeared into the wood. A short time after this, the mother sent her girls into town to buy sewing supplies. they came upon a big tree that had fallen on the ground. They noticed something jumping up and down. When they approached nearer, they saw a dwarf with a long beard. The end of the beard was stuck underneath the tree. He glared at them with his fiery red eyes and screamed out,
What are you standing there for? Come and help me!
"What were you doing, little man?"
You stupid little girl! Isn't it obvious? I wanted to split the tree to get wood for a fire, and my beard was caught beneath the tree when it fell, and I can't get it out, and you silly little girls are just standing there and laughing. Ah, what little wretches you are!
The little girls tried to lift the tree, but they couldn't get the beard out. So Snow White took her scissors out of her pocket and cut off the end of his beard. As soon as the dwarf wasn't stuck anymore, he grabbed his bag full of gold, which was hidden in the roots of the tree.
Ah, my beard! Curse these rude little wenches cutting off a piece of my splendid beard!
He said aloud. Then he swung the bag over his shoulder and disappeared. Soon after, Snow White and Rose Red were walking along the bank of a stream. They saw something which looked like an enormous grasshopper, springing toward the water as if it were going to jump in. They ran along the river and saw the same dwarf. "Where are you going to? Surely you're not going to jump into the water?"
I'm not a fool. My beard is caught in this fishing line, and this crazy fish is trying to drag me in.
The girls held him firm and did all they could to free his beard from the fishing line. But beard and line were in a hopeless mess. All they could do was to take out the scissors again and cut the beard. The little man was far from grateful to the girls for rescuing him. He yelled at them.
Do you call those manners, you rude little girls? Trying to disfigure a little fellow's face? It wasn't enough that you shortened my beard before, but you must now cut off the best bit of it?
Then he took his bag of precious stones and vanished under the rocks into his cave. The girls went on their way to get their mother's sewing supplies. On their way home, as they were again passing the bank of the stream, they noticed the dwarf was pouring out his precious stones on an open space. The evening sun shone on the glittering stones, and they glimmered and sparkled so beautifully that the children just stood still and stared at them.
What are you standing there for?
His face became red with anger. Then a sudden growl was heard, and a black bear trotted out of the woods. The dwarf jumped up in great fright, but he didn't have time to escape down his hole, for the bear was already too close to him. Then he cried in terror.
Dear Mr. Bear, spare me! I'll give you all my treasures, spare my life, you needn't eat me. Look, there, 2 girls, I'm sure that tastes much better than I would.
But the bear, paying no attention to his words, struck the dwarf with his paw, and he never moved again.
Snow White, Rose Red, don't be afraid. It's me.
Then they recognized his voice and turned towards their bear friend. And then Bear's fur suddenly fell off, and a handsome man stood beside them, all dressed in gold clothes and jewelry.
I am a prince, and I have been cursed by that mean little dwarf who stole my treasure. My fate was to roam these woods as a wild bear, until his death should set me free.
When Snow White was old enough, she married the prince, and Rose Red married his brother, and they lived happily ever after. The end. The Happy Prince. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded from head to toe with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. One night, a little swallow flew over the city. She was tired
and wished to spend the night between the feet of the happy prince. As she was just about to fall asleep, a large drop of water fell on her. She was curious as there were no clouds in the sky. Then another drop of water fell on her. The swallow decided to look for another place to sleep. Just then, a third drop fell. She looked up and saw that these were the tears from the eyes of the happy prince. The swallow, filled with compassion, asked, "Who are you, and why are you crying?"
I used to be a human and lived in a grand palace. While I was kind, humble of heart, there was no sorrow within my kingdom, and my courtiers called me the Happy Prince. After my death, I had been set up on a high pillar. My heart is made of lead, and yet it always weeps when I see the ugliness and the misery of my city now.
You poor thing. So, why are you crying now?
Far away in a little cottage, the little boy of a seamstress is sick. He's crying because his mother could not give him anything to eat, because she is very poor. And all she has to offer the small lad is water from a nearby river. But the little one's stomach craves food.
Then, how can you help them from here?
Take the ruby from my sword hilt and give it to the poor woman.
The little swallow obeyed the prince, and then flew to the seamstress's cottage and laid the ruby on her table. She also fluttered over the poor sick boy to give him relief from his fever. As she flew away, the poor mother awoke to find the sparkling ruby resting by her hand. Both of them felt truly happy. When the swallow returned, the prince said,
I can see a writer. He is suffering from the cold and is apparently very hungry. Still, he is writing the story because he will not get anything if he leaves his book unfinished. Dear Swallow, will you please give him the sapphire gem from one of my eyes?
No, my prince, I cannot do that.
It is my order, dear Swallow.
The swallow did not want to pluck out the sapphire from his eye, but she obeyed the generous prince reluctantly. So the swallow, once again, flew into the life of another unfortunate soul, even if it was only for a moment, and laid the sapphire upon the writer's desk. She saw that the writer had fallen unconscious due to the cold and suffering from hunger. So she gathered some wood and lit a fire within the man's fireplace. As she flew away from there, the writer felt the warmth of the blaze and slowly awoke. He saw the sparkling sapphire on his desk, and with immense joy and gratitude, thanked God for providing it. Upon the return of the tiny swallow, the prince said,
I have seen a little match girl whose wares have fallen into the gutter. She is very afraid and quivers with fear, knowing that her father would beat her hard if she returned home empty-handed.
You have nothing left on you to give her, sire.
Dear Swallow, I still have my other eye left. Please give it to that little match girl.
Never, my prince. I cannot do that, for then you would be blind. If I took the other sapphire from you.
I beg of you, dear Swallow, it is the last time I can help someone. After this quest, I will bother you no more, and you can leave me be and continue on your journey.
At his command, the swallow very unwillingly plucked out the sapphire of the other eye of the happy prince, who now was totally blind. The swallow made her final mission for the self-sacrificing statue, and silently slipped the sapphire into the palm of the young match girl, and returned to the prince, saying,
I am not going anywhere, my prince. I will stay here with you till my last breath. From this day forth, I shall be your eyes."
Now, the swallow reported daily to the now meager-looking statue of the sufferings of the people. At the command of the happy prince, the swallow took off the golden leaves from the statue and distributed them among the poor people to give them wealth, so they could each afford a better life. Now, the statue was dull and gray, as there was no gold left on him. Soon winter came, and the frost made the swallow colder and colder, so cold that she was about to die. She flew to the happy prince and kissed him on his forehead.
"This is the final farewell that I shall bid you, my prince."
Oh, you have finally decided to continue your journey, my little friend. I am happy for you. Farewell, my little friend. Farewell.
"No, prince. I am journeying to my death. My death is certain, as I decided to stay with you that day. But I have no regrets about it, for I am at peace and content."
The swallow fluttered haphazardly downward to die at the feet of the statue that she had come to admire and love. The prince cried for an immeasurable length of time, and the lead heart which beat within his now gray form broke in two. The mayor ordered that the statue should be pulled down because it was neither beautiful nor useful. But the broken heart did not melt in the furnace, so it was thrown away and came to rest on top of a trash heap where the poor swallow lay, dead. Upon seeing this, God determined to put his angels that he had created to a test. So he said to them,
Bring me the two most precious things upon the earth that I have created.
Yes, Lord. The heavenly beings came upon the same dust heap where the dead swallow and the happy prince's heart now resided, a lowly trash heap. And the angels picked them up instantly. O Father of the heavenly lights, these are the two most precious things we found upon your earth. God praised the angel's choice in bringing him the lead heart of the happy prince and the deceased swallow.
Now the swallow will stay here in my garden, and the prince will also stay here and enjoy the beauties of my heaven.
Now, whenever Swallow and the happy prince see suffering upon the earth, their teardrops fall from the sky and rain breaks forth from the clouds. The end. The Magic Bell. Once upon a time, in a small village, lived a poor boy named Pooh. He lived with his mother and younger brother. Pooh lived in a small hut which stood right in the center of the village. To earn a livelihood for his family, he used to graze cattle with some of his friends near the mountains, and in the evening returned them to their respective owners. Every day, while the cattle went for grazing, he loved to sit under a tree and play melodious tunes on his wooden flute.
"Hey, Pooh, why do you always play your flute at this very spot?"
I don't know. I love this tree, and you may think I'm crazy, but I feel like this tree is alive and listens to my music.
"Oh, you're right."
What? You think so too?
No, I meant you're right that I think you're crazy.
But Pooh was right. The tree did listen to his music. The music had touched the tree's spirit. It would listen to the tune intently and be happy to have Pooh play it every day. One day, as Pooh was slumbering on one of the branches of the tree, there was a terrible noise beneath him.
Ah, what's that? Oh, earthquake! Earthquake!
There was a woodcutter cutting the same tree where Pooh was sleeping.
Who is this man?
Phew, this'll take some time.
Pooh soon understood what was going on and quickly climbs downward.
Hey, what are you doing? Why are you cutting this tree?
My master would like to use it for his boat. This tree is very strong.
No, you can't cut it.
Really? And why is that? Listen, I've spent many days trying to find strong support for the boat, and you don't own this tree, so don't waste my time.
Pooh will soon have to do something to save the tree, or it will be too late. So he used his cleverness to try and scare the woodcutter away. He said,
Well, you can't say I didn't warn you. It's bound to happen, I suppose.
What's that supposed to mean?
Don't you know? A spirit of an old witch lives in this tree. She's been staying here for years. If you cut this tree down, she'll latch herself onto you, of course.
Latch? Latch on to me?
Why? Isn't it obvious? Since you're the one cutting down this tree?
Are you trying to fool me? I'm smarter than you think, boy. I'm not going to fall for this story. Go away now.
Pooh was desperate to save this tree. As soon as the woodcutter got busy, Pooh climbed up and went straight to the top. He hid in the dense leaves and began to scream.
Ah! Ha ha! How dare you touch my home!
What? Who is that?
If you destroy my home, I will come to live with you, and I will never leave you, human.
The boy was right.
Don't worry, human. We will be good friends.
The woodcutter began to run as fast as he could.
What's the hurry, my friend?
Just as Pooh was laughing at the woodcutter, the tree came to life.
Pooh.
Pooh was shocked to hear someone talking to him.
Are you really the spirit of an old witch?
No, Pooh. I am not an old witch spirit. I mean, I am old, but I am the spirit of this tree. Your music brought me to life. You are a cunning boy, Pooh, and I am grateful to you. You saved me from the woodcutter.
Suddenly, a nice golden bell appeared in front of Pooh, which was floating in mid-air.
Here, accept this as a thank you gift.
A bell?
Not just an ordinary bell, my dear. This is a magical bell. Every time you ring it, the plate will magically fill with delicious food to eat.
Oh, wow! This'll really help me and my family.
Yes, it will, but remember, Pooh, you can only ring this bell once in a day.
I will remember that. Thank you, dear tree.
Pooh ran to call his mother and brother in the village.
Mom! Ronnie! Come here, look what I've got!
He shared the incident with them. They were very happy to see the magic bell. They wished for their favorite foods, rang the bell, and ate to their heart's content. Afterwards, they went to bed with their tummies full after a long and delicious meal. The next morning, as usual, Pooh took the cattle out to graze on the pasture, leaving the bell at home. When he came back in the evening, tired and hungry, he found all the pots empty. There was no food left for him to eat. Pooh was saddened and just ate the leftovers that he found in a cupboard. Still being hungry after his meager meal, he went to bed. He couldn't sleep due to his tummy growling of hunger. So, he decided to take the magic bell with him the next day. When his mother and younger brother were hungry later that day, they looked for the bell. They searched the entire hut from top to bottom, but couldn't find the magic bell, which made them very sad. They thought that they had lost the bell.
They had neither the bell nor food. They went to bed on empty stomachs. When Pooh returned home in the evening, he took out the magic bell from his satchel. He ordered his most favorite food. His mother and younger brother were very sad to see this. His younger brother started crying, and he said,
Brother, we're so hungry, and we kept looking for the bell. You have become so selfish. How could you?
Hearing this, Pooh realized his mistake. He regretted his decision, but he also shared with his honest thoughts.
You asked the bell to give you food, but you forgot to save some for me. I was tired and went to bed hungry, and it hurt my feelings. So I was sad and angry.
His brother and mother also realized their mistakes. They ate their meal together as a family that night, and from that day onwards, they never slept with empty stomachs and lived happily ever after. The end. The Little Tin Soldier. Once upon a time, a toy maker fashioned 25 soldiers from a piece of tin. They all carried muskets, they all looked straight ahead, and they all wore splendid uniforms of red and blue. At last, when it came to the last soldiers that were made, there wasn't quite enough tin. The toy maker only had enough to give the soldier one leg. But that soldier didn't mind. He was very proud to be different. He was very proud of his one leg. He stood erect, carrying his musket, looking straight ahead, in his bright red and blue uniform. The toy maker placed all 25 soldiers tightly into a box. Then he carefully gift-wrapped the box. They were a birthday present for a small boy named Jojo. When the little boy saw the box, he let out an excited yell.
Ah, tin soldiers! Thanks, Mommy!
Jojo emptied the soldiers out on the floor and selected the last tin soldier for the duty of captain, because he was different, and that made him special. Jojo placed him on top of the cupboard beside the toy hippo, where the soldiers could see a brown teddy bear, a slinky dog, an astronaut, a box labeled Jack, a magnificent castle with a swan floating on a lake, and, standing at the castle door, was the most beautiful girl the soldier had ever seen. He fell in love with her because, like him, she only had one leg.
I have never seen anyone so beautiful.
Lucy? Yeah, she is. She is always on one foot. She is a determined ballerina.
Oh, I am sorry. I did not mean to be rude. I didn't realize I was talking out loud.
Oh, you are a really good soldier, humble and respectful.
I am honored, sir. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing, since you're here, you should know. Jack in the Box toy is tricky and mean.
Thank you for your kind advice, Mr. Hippo.
That's all he said to Mr. Hippo. And then he said to himself,
I shall make her my wife.
But what the soldier didn't realize was that the beautiful lady was a ballerina, and these types of dancers held their other leg high in the air to dance. And that's why he could see only her one leg from his position. Every evening at midnight, when the clock struck 12, all the toys would come alive and they would play. The little tin soldier was determined that at that time he would visit the castle and ask for the beautiful lady's hand in marriage. But another thing which he was unaware of was that the Jack in the Box was also desiring the ballerina as a wife for himself. At the stroke of midnight, he began to hop in the direction of the castle. Firstly, he jumped from the cupboard, and with many hurdles, he finally climbed the table to reach near the castle. Suddenly, the lid of the Jack-in-the-Box popped open, and a frightening and hideous face jumped out and stared down at the little tin soldier.
I'm Jack. She's out of your league, soldier boy. And anyway, you only got one leg.
There was a moment of silence between them.
You live in a box. She lives in a castle. Give up.
The little tin soldier looked up at the castle. The beautiful dancer had been watching him. She smiled. He started bouncing towards the castle.
Tin soldier!
Jack practically spat the words out with a fury in his eyes.
Don't wish for something that doesn't belong to you.
The tin soldier ignored Jack's ominous voice.
Very well. Wait until tomorrow. Bad things will happen. An ill wind will carry you away.
And with a fiendish laugh, he disappeared back inside his box.
I wouldn't take any notice of Jack.
The little tin soldier glanced towards the castle and the beautiful lady. He lay down beside the lake, watching the Lucy. Finally, he drifted off to sleep. From there, the soldier could survey the whole room, and the lovely Lucy was smiling at him. So he smiled back. But he can't see Jack's box. Suddenly, a gust of wind caught the curtain. It flipped the little tin soldier backward out of the open window. While he was falling, Jack's words tumbled through his mind.
An ill wind will carry you away.
And he heard Jack's fiendish laugh in the wind. The little tin soldier landed on the pavement. Then, heavy drops of rain started to fall. It wasn't long before water was pouring down the gutter beside him.
What bad thing is going to happen to me next?
He said to himself. As if in answer, two boys came running down the street. They thought it would be fun to send a little tin soldier out to sea for an exploration. They quickly made a small sailboat out of an old newspaper and placed him inside. They sent a boat sailing down the gutter. The little tin soldier shouldered his musket. He wondered,
will I ever see my beautiful dancer again?
Large waves rocked the boat up and down. Suddenly, the boat dipped down and rushed into a drain. The little tin soldier trembled. He held on to his musket tightly.
What on earth is happening? I bet Jack is behind this.
Inside the drain, it was very dark. In the distance, he saw what looked like the headlights of a car. As the boat floated closer, the soldier realized that the two lamps were in fact eyes. The eyes of a huge, ugly water rat. It was the Border Patrol. He cried,
Passport!
The tin soldier remained silent. The water rat's hand reached out to make a grab for his passport, but the little tin soldier was too quick. He crashed his boat through the straw barrier and sped away. The rat gave chase. He screamed,
Stop him! Stop him! He hasn't paid me his toll! He isn't got a pass!
But the roaring water surged on. The little tin soldier could already see daylight ahead.
Freedom! Freedom! I might still get home to see her smile once more.
As the little boat rushed towards the daylight, the soldier heard a noise. It was a waterfall. The little boat shot out into the air. Way below was a canal.
Not again.
Although he was frightened, he refused to close his eyes. The boat spun and swirled and crashed onto the surface of the water and finally drowned. The soldier was thrown into the thunderous water, and everything went dark. He had been swallowed by a fish. As the soldier lay in the fish tummy for several hours, a flash of lightning struck. Then he heard a voice which he recognized.
Oh my goodness, it's the little one-legged soldier!
The fish that had swallowed him had been hooked, taken to the market, and sold to Jojo's mother. When she sliced it open, she found the little tin soldier. She carefully dried the soldier and then put him in the castle next to the beautiful dancer and left. The soldier sees her smile and his heart melted. He bowed down to ask her for marriage and sees her other leg. He got disappointed because he thought she could never say yes, but suddenly he heard a soft voice.
You are Captain Tin, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say something.
Please, go ahead, ma'am.
I love you since I saw you on that cupboard. Will you marry me?
Little Tin Man was surprised, and he quickly said yes. But then the clock chimed midnight. Jack came out from his box. He was looking furious as rage filled his eyes. He quickly drew a sword from his box and said,
I told you not to wish for what doesn't belong to you. Lucy is mine. Prepare to die.
Little Tin Soldier rose up and put forward his musket, which had a bayonet. They started fighting in front of the castle, and suddenly Little Tin Soldier put his bayonet in Jack's box and swung him back towards the burning stove. With a loud scream, Jack fell into the burning stove, and he burnt to his death. Little Tin Soldier and Lucy hugged each other, and they went straight to the palace to live. Then they lived happily ever after. The end.
The Elves and the Shoemaker. There was once a shoemaker who worked very hard and made very good shoes. But still, he could not earn enough to make his living. At last, all his money ran out, and he had only enough leather left to make one more pair of shoes. That evening, he cut out the leather, ready to be stitched up the following morning. And then he followed his wife upstairs to bed, feeling very sad. He rose again at sunrise, said his prayers, and was about to settle down to work, when to his amazement, he saw the shoes all stitched up and ready on the table. The good man could not understand how it had happened. He examined the shoes carefully and found that they were quite beautifully stitched and finished off. The same day, a customer came into the shop and bought the shoes, and because they were of such excellent quality, he was willing to pay the double the usual price for them. With this money, the cobbler had bought enough leather for 2 more pairs of shoes. Again he cut them out, and again he left the leather on his bench overnight, thinking he would stitch them together the following morning. But when he awoke, he found that the work had already been done for him. The 2 pairs of shoes were as beautifully made as the first, and soon found willing buyers. And the shoemaker received enough money for them to buy leather for 4 more pairs. Soon it went on for weeks and months. Each evening, the shoemaker would carefully cut out the leather, say his prayers, and retire to bed. And each morning, he would find the shoes standing sewn and ready in neat rows on the bench. 8 pairs at first, then 12, then 20, and almost too many pairs to count. And he had so many customers that now he could afford to buy the finest skins and other costly materials besides. He cut out knee-high boots of the softest suede for the lords to wear when they rode off with their hounds to the hunt, and shoes of silk and brocade and velvet for the ladies to wear with their fashionable ball gowns. And before many months had passed, the shoemaker grew so rich that he began to want to share his prosperity with his invisible helpers. One night, he and his wife hid behind a pile of leather hides to see who these helpers were. At midnight, 2 little naked men appeared, and hey presto, they stitched up all the shoemaker's shoes for him. Then they disappeared. The shoemaker's wife was very sorry for them because of their nakedness, and she at once set to work to sew them the loveliest little clothes, while the shoemaker made them a pair of pointed silk shoes. They laid the present out and were on the watch again at midnight as the little men came in to do their work. When the elves saw their clothes, they were delighted. They put them on and laughed and danced all around the room, and they skipped out into the street, never to be seen again. But the shoemaker continued to be successful and prosperous in his work for the rest of his days.
The Little Mermaid. A long time ago, there was a city under the sea named Atlantis. King Orin ruled and had one daughter. She was pretty. Not only was she beautiful, but the Little Mermaid could sing beautifully. Mermaids were not allowed to go up to the surface to see the world of humans until they were 20 years old. Each year, the Little Mermaid would plead with her father to be allowed to travel to the water's surface.
Be patient, little one. Your turn will come.
At long last, it was the Little Mermaid's 20th birthday. Towards the end of the day, her father turned to her and said,
The time has come, my sweet child. Go to the surface of the sea and come back to tell us what you find. But be safe and stay away from humans.
The Little Mermaid kissed her father, said goodbye, and began the long swim upwards to the surface. It was nighttime before she arrived at her destination. She saw a ship lit by hundreds of glowing lanterns. So she swam closer to the ship. And upon hearing strange and wonderful music, she just had to find out how these sounds were made. Looking through a window in the side of the ship, she saw what appeared to be a birthday party going on the ship's lower floor. And it seemed that it was for a young prince. He was the most handsome creature that the mermaid had ever seen, and it didn't take much for the gullible young maiden to fall in love. After a while,
It's getting late. I must head home.
she was about to dive, but suddenly there was a strange sound which she had never heard before. A storm. The prince's ship started to lurch and roll in the churning sea, and there were screams of terror as the sailors tried to save their ship from the giant waves. Then swiftly, the ship rammed on the sea stone and broke in two. Many lives were thrown into the sea along with the prince. The Little Mermaid knew that humans could not survive underwater.
No, I will not let my love drown.
So she carried Prince back up to land, where she tended to his wounds throughout the night. The prince was unconscious upon arrival to the sea's shore. So the mermaid laid the sleeping prince on the sand in front of a small church and cried for help. Then she swam to some nearby rocks to see if someone would come to his aid. The prince opened his eyes and saw a girl coming out of the church. When the girl saw him, she quickly ran back into the church to fetch some help. People came running. The prince was picked up and gently carried away. The Little Mermaid then swam back to her home. For days, she sat sadly by herself. But the Little Mermaid could not forget the prince. So she devised a foolish plan to swim off and be with the stranger whom she had given her heart to. The next day, the Little Mermaid called for their royal advisor, Sebastian the Crab. He soon came to see the Little Mermaid and said,
Princess, how can I help you?
Take me to Ursula, the sea witch.
Sebastian yelped in surprise and exclaimed,
Don't you know who she is? She is an evil witch. Why?
Then she told Sebastian the whole story of the storm, along with her plan to be with the prince. After a brief argument, Sebastian foolishly agreed to take her to Ursula. The sea witch lived in the darkest, coldest part of the ocean, and her house, which was made from the bones of drowned sailors, was guarded by poisonous water snakes. As the little mermaid and Sebastian enter Ursula's lair, the sea witch stood in front of her crystal ball, gazing into it and smiling fiendishly.
Ursula, I have come to...
Oh, my sweet little princess, I know why you have come. You want to marry a prince whom you've never met. You wish to lose your fish's tail. Fear not. I've got a potion which won't fail.
So, you can help me?
My sweet child, that's what I do. It's what I live for. I can vanish your tail, but it will hurt too.
Just tell me what I have to do.
Ursula snatched a dark-hued potion from her pantry with her tentacles. With this potion, you will be in two-legged motion.
Give me the potion.
Ursula smiled eerily and said, No. To get the potion, I have one condition. Nothing comes for free. First, you pay me.
But I have nothing. I'm only a princess with unlimited wealth. How can I pay?
Your beautiful voice is what I need. Then you will be human indeed. Only 3 days you have. Remember this. The prince should fall for you and give you a kiss. Once you get your kiss, you will always be human, enjoying bliss. But if you fail to follow my tone, you will be sea foam.
Very well. If that is what I must pay.
The witch handed the little mermaid the potion, and her voice left her. The next day, the prince's servants found a beautiful young woman lying on the beach near the palace. They helped her inside, and when she walked, she seemed to be in great pain, as if she were walking on knives. The servants dressed her in fine clothes, and the prince came to see her.
You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. What's your name?
But she kept her silence, as this was the little mermaid. Although she didn't speak, she quickly became the prince's favorite. He never went anywhere without the little mermaid at his side. Before long, the prince told her how much he cared for her, and she thought her heart would burst.
But I can't marry you because I'm still searching for my true love.
He explained about the storm and a beautiful girl rescuing him, and how, after only getting a glimpse of her, had fallen in love with her, deciding that if he ever found her, he would marry her. The little mermaid was very sad, for she couldn't tell the prince that she was that girl, that she had given up everything, her tail, her voice, her family, just to be with him. On the second day, a king from another land visited the prince. The king brought with him his beautiful daughter, and when the prince saw the king's daughter, he recognized her. This was the girl who had found him on the beach. So he asked her to marry him, and she agreed. On the third day, the little mermaid thought her heart would break, for it was the same day her prince would marry the other princess. And when the sun set, she would die, just like she had agreed to with the sea witch. The wedding was to be held on the ship. So, with a heavy heart, she attends, just so she can see the prince one last time. Earlier that day, the little mermaid's parents visited Ursula and threatened her. The cruel sea witch gave them a knife, explaining that if their daughter would plunge that knife into the heart of the prince, her spell would be broken. As the marriage was well underway, she went on the ship's deck to cry, and there she saw her father and mother came upon water. They were sad.
What have you done, my child?
Her mother was crying.
Quick, you can still save yourself. The witch has given us this magic dagger. Kill the prince, for when his blood splashes on your feet, it will grow into a tail, and you will become a mermaid again. Hurry, the sun is nearly rising.
After her parents left, she ran towards the prince with the knife. She looked at him as he was happy beside his new wife. One blow with the knife, and then she would be free. She looked at the sharp dagger, then at the prince. She still loved him, so she went to the deck again and threw the knife far out into the sea. In the morning, the prince ordered his servants to search high and low, but no sign of the little mermaid was ever found. The prince was very sad and would often sit on the beach late at night, missing his little friend. And sometimes he would look at the bubbles on the water shining in the moonlight and was almost certain that he could see her face. The end.